Hello, let's try to understand the Docker CLI. We have installed so far Docker Community Edition. We want to interact with our container. We want to create the container. We want to create volumes. We want to create networks, etc. But Docker has one interface, that is Docker CLI. Docker CLI is actually very easy and you all can easily interact with Docker process. So first command we should be running is Docker version. This is a command which tells you that which Docker CE version on which build has been installed on your host machine. Another command you should be running is Docker info. Docker info tells you that entire uh, properties of Docker software that has got installed. These are the default things like you have how many containers running, images, versions, etc. Now the Docker, let's assume that I have no idea about Docker. I'm the very first time beginner user and I want to interact with Docker CLI. How I will do that? You know that Docker is a command. That's it, right? Let's go ahead and take help, -help. Now when I go ahead help, and I'm giving you one option, like let's say I'm a beginner, it's okay, but I want to create a container, number one. I want to stop the container, number two. I want to expose my container on a network, etc. Right? So I'll try to first interact here today with a container only. Then in later videos, we will try to understand with the CLI how we can interact with storage and images, etc. as well. So if I don't know that after Docker, what I have to do or what I have to give for managing my containers, I can run docker -help. It will give me set of options here which I can try to understand, right? So if you see there are sections, it says that after Docker you can give your option and then you can give the commands, right? That's a uses of Docker command. It says that there are common commands which we should be giving over here, and there are management commands which we should be giving over here at the same time, right? Builder, buildx, volume, network, blah blah things, right? But if we see that we want to manage what containers, so to manage the containers, the option here is that container, right? And container option, by using container option, you would be able to manage your containers. So how can I check that? After Docker, I can give the command, right? So command options are any options, like let's say here the global options, etc., right? And other commands. So we'll talk about one by one, all of them. Docker and commands. So I want to manage what? If I want to manage container, I will give Docker space container. If I want to manage images, image, I will give Docker space image, and then same for Docker space plugin, Docker space network, Docker space system, Docker space trust, Docker space volume, compose, etc. etc. So let's first talk about how to manage the containers. So I will give Docker fine container. This is a command which I just got that, right? But after that, what I have to put, I don't know. I have no idea. So -help again, I'll try. Then it says that these are the sub commands of Docker container. It means that after Docker space container, I can give attach to attach standard local input, output, or error stream for a running containers. We'll talk about these commands also. Commit, we can create a new image from a container's changes. If we are running any container and we have performed any changes into that, then we can create an image out of that. CP, we can do copy paste some items from and to container. Diff, we can check, inspect the directories and container file system, etc. But what to create a container? So to create a container, we will have a command create, right? We will try to use the first command create only. So we know that I have to give Docker, then I have to give container, and then I have to give create command. But what else? After Docker container create, where with which option I will be giving the image, right? So -help, take the help again, and then you will see all the possible options which are available here for a container, right? There are many, right? We will talk about few important options here, which will be with you in a regular use. So the first option we will talk about is what should be the container name. Okay, and it says that you can run, there are aliases also, right? Creating a new container, you can give, how the command you will give is docker container create, then you will give some option, then you will give your image name, and then means from which image you want to create the container, and then command, and then arguments, etc. Docker create is alias of this command. You can straight away don't use docker container create, you can use docker create also, that's an alias. Aliases are very easy, very important to understand, because it saves you a lot of time. If you are appearing for docker uh, exam or something, or you are working in your regular routine, there also docker alias commands are really helpful. So few options which I would like is to understand is that I want to run my container, I want to create my container with few parameters. Now what is that? If I want to, let's say, give a container host name, then I can use hyphen h or hyphen hyphen host name followed by, and we can give some string. If I want to give a name to this container, right? In my past videos, you could see that when I was creating a container, it was taking a random name. I want to give a precise name. So I can assign a name with hyphen hyphen name. If I'm running a container and I have multiple network, I can assign my container a different network here, the network option, right? Then there are same with these, there are many other options as well, right? So out of that, which one I would be interested is checking out the hyphen D option. If I'm sorry, D would be with the container running. So uh, that's there. Let's try with these two options and then we'll understand more. So I will try to run docker create. You know that docker create is alias of docker container create. So you run, effect is same if you want to run this command, or docker create is there. Docker container create, and then with hyphen hyphen name I can give my container name. So I'm giving my first container. That's a name I would like to have. Then I can give image. So I can give nginx, and then tag I can give, let's say, latest, okay, or 1.22, right? So nginx is image. The name is of my choice. Before that, there are other things also. Like I thought that I will be giving, if I want the host name also, right? So here let's try to give host name, and let's create. So if I run this, the image tag nginx 1.22 wasn't available locally. So what it does, it started pulling that image. Now the pull is done, and you can see the container has been created. The difference between docker run and docker container command is that docker create will create the container only, it will not run. To run the container, you have to use docker start command. Docker run, what it does, it creates the container, at the same time docker run start the container as well. So if you see here, I want to see docker ps, I'll see nothing. Docker ps hyphen a will give me the correct option. It says that container has got created. The name of the container also is visible, first container, right? Now the first time we have given a custom container, but the container is not running. So you can use id or you can use name to start the container. So I'm running docker start container, sorry, the first container, and docker ps, and then you see that container is started. It got created about 1 minute back, and the status is last 3 seconds since then it is up. Okay, now there are other options as well. For example, you want to uh, give a port to this container, right? There must be some option. So if you see here the network section, that says that you can connect with individual network, but if there are default network, the container will automatically be associated there. With -p option, you can publish and then you can give the list, right? There is -p capital option also available, or publish all. The difference between them we will try to understand. The first section says that with -p you can map random port, right? For example, with a host port. Okay, so in one of the video, I talk about this networking, right? So you can see that video. Let's say host has a single IP address. So 8080 we want to map with this container port 80. Then we can use -p option. So I'm now going to run another container, right, with a different name. Name cannot be same. So I'm going to run the second container. Host name I can give, it's okay, host name can be duplicate. So I have to give -p option. So I can map 8080 to container port 80. And if I run, sorry, the mapping is wrong. I had to give the host name test here, -p. The container has got created. So if I see docker ps -a, the container has got created. If I try to docker start second container, you see that the container is running. And if you run docker ps-a, you see that the port has got mapped. That was a second example. But you see what? Uh, when you are creating a container, then you have to run it also. So it means that if there are any command which can create container and run both, that will be really good. That command is docker run. So if you run docker run and then --help. If you don't understand that, let's try to take a help, and this will tell you the difference between docker run and then docker create. Okay, let's try to see that. Docker run, we don't find it here. Docker run. What run does and what create does, right? With run, there will be create also. Inspect, kill, create. Docker create command will create a new container, but docker run will create and run a new container from an image. That's a difference. So we would love to use run now. So docker run, and then if you want to take help, what it gives? It gives almost same option. You can have a name, you can have a network, right? You can publish the ports, etc. Okay, and that's how it is. So let's try to see that how docker run helps us. So if you start running your docker run command, you should be giving one more option. The first thing, if I want to run, let's say giving a random docker run, giving nginx, but let's take --name test. So what do you see here is that I am actually in the container terminal. The container terminal is here. If somebody is accessing, I will be getting the log. That's we call, this is interactive mode. This is interactive mode. I should be running my container in non-interactive way so that the container keeps running. Now what this meaning is that if you are running control C, then you see that your container was start worker, but then the moment you press control C, the signal has got received here and container is now exiting, exit and exit, right? So if you run docker ps-a, you find out that your test container, which expected to be running, but that is exited. So how I want to delete the container? There is a command docker, and then you don't know that command, let's say. Then --help, you will find out that there would be option of rm, which will remove one or more container. So I'm running docker ps-a again to list down the container name, and I will run docker rm and test. This will delete my container. If I run docker ps-a again, then it says that there are only 2 containers. This one has got deleted. So docker run I can use to create a container and run it also. But at the same time, it is interactive, and I should be running my containers in a non-interactive mode. So if I try to check out here, I see one option D, which is detached. Detached means that you run a container, but it goes in a background and it prints just the container ID. This is what I was looking for, right? So I will run the same container create command, right? But with a switch. That switch I can give anywhere. After name, before name, right? Before name, I can give D here also, detached mode, or I can give here also. So when you run, it prints the container ID and container is running. So if you go ahead and see docker ps-a, you find out that your container is actually running the test, right? This is the difference between docker container create or docker create and between docker run. Few more interesting things. Let's say what if my container is running and I want to delete this. So if you run docker rm against test now, this time, it says that your container is running. You should stop your container before removing, or you can force remove also. Let's try to understand the difference. So if I want to delete a container, remove the container which is running, let's say the first container here, that's an ID, that's a name also. So I can run docker stop first container ID, but before that, let's try to delete it for same in the same way. So docker rm, again it says that container is running, you should stop it first. So I'm running docker stop container ID. Container got stopped. How we will get to know? If I run docker ps-a, the container is in exited mode. If I run docker rm now with the container ID, it's very easy. The container got deleted. Docker ps-a, you see no more. Again, if I'm running the same command against this container which is running, obviously it should be printing the message that this container you cannot remove because it's running. What is the option of force remove? Let's try to see docker rm hyphen help command. You will see that there is option hyphen force or hyphen f, which will force the removal of a running container also. Okay, so if I run docker rm hyphen f and then giving the container ID, the container was running but it got deleted. You see that the container was running, right? This was running but it got deleted. That is the force. Okay, that is force option. So we know that how to create container, we know that how to start container. Let's see that how we can restart. If this is docker containers are the process, then how somebody can restart container, start container, and stop container. Docker ps-a, we have one container which is running. Now see these two status. 2 minutes back we have created this container. From 2 minutes, last 2 minutes, this is up. If I want to run docker restart and giving the container name and enter, it says docker restarted. If I run docker ps again, what do I see is container status is still up, but it's not up from last 2 minutes now, it's up from last 6 minutes because container got restarted. It is almost same that you have one service running in your Linux machine and you are restarting that service with systemctl nginx restart or something like that. Systemctl restart nginx, systemctl restart something. So here the docker restart and then test and the container gets restarted. Okay. When I want to stop the container, I can use docker stop command and I can give the name. The container went into exited mode. We can see docker ps-a, it is in exited mode. Okay. I can start the container also again, so it started running. Now if I see Docker PS, you will get to know that from 2 seconds, last 2 seconds, 3 minutes back it got created, and from last 2 seconds it's up. Very good. Now we will try to understand container creation, but the container should be assigning. Here the container which we are creating so far, the container can utilize entire CPU of host, entire memory of host. In few cases where you want to execute a container process in a limited amount of CPU and memory, or let's say in other words, you want to restrict the resources of a container, you can, while creating the container, you can assign the uh, CPU and memory. You can limit that, right? Sorry. So how and what that option is? If my this container is already running, and if I go ahead here and try to inspect this container, the function of this container, right? I can give here the option that Docker container inspect container name test. Then it gives me in a JSON format all the properties of a container. So if you go ahead here from the beginning, you will be able to understand the properties. When this container has got created, what is the command which is running inside this Docker entry pipe dataset? The argument with this entry point is being passed nginx-gt when off. In status of this container running is true, passed is false, restarting no, OAM out of memory killed no, right? When started, when finished, what is the image you are using, that image saw checksum values, what is the host path of this, what is the host path name, what is the log path where the logs are getting stored for this container, right? Where the resolve.conf file it is, the location and everything it talks about this container, right? Name of the container is /test, fine. Driver is overlay, platform is Linux. So all of the details, right, for this container you will get from here. Now if you see the CPU and memory here, you see that there is no CPU quota, that's 0. It means that any amount of CPU it can use. Then you see that there is no memory reservation, etc. So it can use as much as possible. It can use the memory, etc. Okay, that's how it is, right? Now we will try to understand that how we can create a container with a given by giving a limited amount of memory, etc. So I can use docker run command again, but with a help option we will try to see. So if you see here, the memory option you will see, right? The name, then the memory option. And this memory option with -m or with -- memory option, it says that we can give the memory bytes here. Okay, we can give a memory bytes here. Same way, are we getting something for CPUs? Let's see the CPU share A, B, C, D here. So we can apply the CPU fair scheduler quota, right? With -c, we can give the CPU share option, relative weight, right? With -c option. So -c and -m option are using which we can regulate. We can give the CPU and memory, etc. Right? So Docker PS again, I have one container running. I want to use Docker run command to run the container. So -d -name test CPU, for instance, and nginx, fine. But before this, I have to give -c, then I have to define CPUs here, then -m, and I have to define the memory. So -m, let's say I'm trying to give 12 MB only. So with -m, 12 MB to this Nginx machine only. With -c, I can give relative weight, so I can give, let's say, 200 or 100, right? So if I run docker ps, the container is running. Okay, the container is running, and if I try to inspect this docker container inspect test CPU, right, and try to get at the same place where we were checking the options of CPU and memory, etc. Let's try to see the CPU, right? CPU, right? Where do you see the CPUs here? 100. Here you see the CPUs here, 100. And here you see the memory in bytes, by the way, right? So you see the memory, you see the CPUs here, okay? And now what we should be doing is that docker ps, this container we could give while creating. But is there any command which can do this change on a running container? Yes, we have one command, docker update. Docker update is a command. If you try to go with help, there are limited options of a running container which you can change. Like CPU and memory is one of that. And another important option is restart. I'll tell you about the restart, why this option is being used and how many options with restart arguments we can give. So let's talk about the CPU and memory with update. Is it something we can do? Docker PS we have test as a container where we don't have any CPU share or memory limit applied. So I will try to run docker update command. With docker update command, I can give the test, the container name, but before that I have to pass all the arguments. So in -m, I'm giving 16 MB only. In byte, it will count automatically. Because arguments have no order. Arguments are just argument. You can give in any back and forth option, right? So -m6, and I'm giving CPU now here. So CPU I'm giving 50 and running it, right? So it says that memory limit should be smaller than already set memory, swap limit, etc. It means that when I created the container, the memory which I'm trying to right now run, what is the memory swap that we have to check, right? So let's try to, I cannot give the memory limit uh, um, as a swap limit here, right? Or otherwise, I can give both at the same time. So what it says, memory limit should be smaller than already set memory swap limit. Update the memory swap at the same time. So I can give memory swap option also to update this. Memory 16M, swap memory also 16M. Then let's try to run. Now you see that it has got updated. Okay. Now if you run 16M and 50 CPU, we will try to see. Okay. So container, inspect and test. 16 and so you see here the memory option, right? The CPU was here, the CPU share 50 we gave, last time we gave 100, this time we gave 50. Memory we gave 60, that's how the 60 in bytes, that's there. And with memory, there was swap memory as well. So if you go down here, memory swap, you see the value is same. What is the value of memory is? That's how the update works, right? Now you would be surprised that when we were running Docker, I told you that when we were running Docker update command, there was one option, the restart. Now, why you should be surprising is if I restart my machine, let's say I'm running sudo reboot. But before that, let's try to see how many containers we have running docker ps-a. We have both the containers running. When I'm running sudo reboot command, or for some reason my host gets restarted for some reason, what will happen to my existing containers which we are running, right? That's the question. So those container will actually stopped. Let's try to, the restart has happened. So I'm trying to log in here. And if I run docker ps-a, we'll see that both the containers were in exited mode. So we have, when my host is restarting, container will not restart alongside of host. So what we have to do is we have to give some option. We call it as restart policy on these containers so that the container can also restart when the host is getting restarted. So let's try to understand the restart policy here. We will run docker update command and we will try to see --help. If you see restart, the policy we can apply, right? With --restart option. So with --restart, we will try to take help. Okay. So it says that at least one argument we have to give. Now the restart option, how many arguments are we can give? There are some policies in Docker. The first is always. Okay. You can look in Google that how many Docker container restart policies are. So the first one is restart always. If you are running update, right, and restart for, let's say, test container, test CPU I will not run, test I'm going to run, restart, you can pass always like this. It means that your container will always be restarted even if it is stopped manually, right, or exits with a zero exit code. This option, this always option, this ensures that the high availability is maintained, but you may have restart loops also, because if the container inside container, what is the process is running, that process is keep failing, your container will keep restarting itself. So that's where always is little problematic. There is another option which is on failure, right? On failure means that the container will be restarted only if it exit with a non-zero exit code. If you have some failure inside your code, then only container will be stopped. Will be, sorry, restarted, because that's a restart option, right? When it will be restarted. So there are four options. No means you don't want any restart. That's default option, by the way. So it doesn't restart, right? On failure, if you give, instead of always, if I want to give on failure, then if your code or something has wrong, then only the container will get restarted. The another option which I like most is unless stop. Unless stopped means that this is almost similar to always. So it will keep container restarting. If container is failed, any code is failed, not healthy, then it will try to restart to auto heal itself, right? But the container will not be restarted if you are manually stopping it. If you have always option, even if you manually stop it, the container will start again. Let's try to see this behavior in both the containers. So I am running docker update restart unless stop. I'm giving to test, and always I am giving to test CPU. Always I'm giving to test CPU. Let's see the difference. You see that docker ps sorry, these are in exited mode, so I have to start them first. So docker start test CPU and test, right? Started both. You see here docker ps with test CPU. I gave restart policy as always. It means that if I manually stop it, it should come up again. And the test I have given that unless stop, which is manually. Let's try to stop it. So docker stop test CPU. The container has got stopped, it seems, right? After some time, you will see that that container is in exited state because I have stopped it manually. But the option which I gave in test CPU was restart always. So it will try to restart. So docker ps -a and manually it will try to start itself. So what if I reboot my host machine? Sudo reboot, and then we will try to see if the both the containers are running. So always option will, when I click manually, I mean if I manually stop it, right, the container will be restarted. But that mainly works with Docker Swarm cluster. I'll tell you that. So machine come up, and this time when I'm running docker ps-a, what I see, my both the machines are up last 24 seconds. So this is a restart policy, and that is how we deal with containers. There are other things also how we should be dealing with the container. Let's say you want to get inside a container. So docker ps, the test is running. There is one command, docker exec. If you run -help, right, your docker exec, what it does, it gets you into the docker container terminal, and there then to get into that you need a sudo tty terminal. So that's where you will use t, and if you want to run interactive commands you have to run I as well. So docker exec -it you have to give, and then you can give test. Okay, but after test you need to give one argument, that is shell, which shell you want to get into it. So you can give sh, and you see that my prompt has got changed. Why? Because I am now inside container. So if I run ls, you see that docker entry point .d and this sh, and there are other things also. So if I go into /etc, let's say, and ls, then I'm getting nginx, right? Because this is nginx. So I'm getting nginx. If I go here cd space nginx, then I'm getting nginx, right? Here cat nginx, you see I'm getting the conf file also. Okay, so I can change my shell as well, right? So what we see here is that there are, this is docker exec command using which you can get into the container, and then you can run your commands also. So like let's say I'm running cat etc asterisk release, just to get to know, sorry, I had to run asterisk here, just to get to know that what operating system base image this container is using. That's using Debian 12 bookworm, we get to know, right? So if you run exit, you will come out from the bash of container. When you get put enter again, exit again, then will come out from the container main shell, right? I could run into the bash shell straight away by just giving bash here, right? Now one more thing, if you want to run a command inside container but don't want to get into the container, exec means execution. If you don't want, it means that interactive terminal you don't want. You don't want to get attached with this docker containers interactive terminal. Then you can simply remove this -it option. And whatever command you want to run inside container, that you can give straight here. Like let's say you want to run ls, you give it, right? You want to run df, you give it. You want to run host name, you give it. So single command you give it, and it will be executed inside the container. Okay, it gives you a interactive terminal session for that container. That's a difference between it, right? Docker exec command is always being used for interacting with the container console. Fine. This was docker exec command. Now think that you are running docker exec test and ls, and you see that there are these much of systems. You have one file, for example, if I'm creating a file, echo hello test.txt file. I want to copy this file into the container first, and then this is my host machine, right? And I want to copy this file inside the container, and I will try to take one file, download one file from container to my host also. In both the cases, there is a command docker cp. Docker cp, you can give a source, then you can give a container, right? You can Google it like docker cp example. If you want to search for docker cp example, both the options and will be there, right? Now docker cp, you want source is what? Source is this file, so give this file name docker cp test.txt. Now the container, which container? You have two containers, right? If I run docker ps, you will get to know that you have two containers. Inside which container you want to copy this file? So docker cp test.txt, and you want to copy inside which container? That's where you have to give the host name, or whichever the name, name of the container, right? Let's say test. Inside test and on slash you want to copy. Is it like you want to copy here, right? Then yes, you can, and it will be copied on root. If you want to copy inside, let's say etc, like this. So this test is container name. It could be test cpu also, and file will be copied from host to this container, this place. If you run docker cp, you see successfully copied. Now how you will see that the file is there? We can run docker exec command without going interactive test, right, and etc, or maybe test, and then the command you have to run is ls inside etc. So when you run ls inside etc, you will see that there is a command test.txt. This file has got copied. If you want to actually read the content, test.txt, that's hello, right? Now, if you want nginx.conf file, you want to copy from the container. Reverse you can do. See, this was the test, right? Now inside etc, there is a folder called nginx. Inside that you have nginx.conf. Just reverse the source and destination thing. So cp will still be there, but now your container name colon the location of the file becomes your source, and then dot will copy that in a current directory. So if I put enter, you see that the file has been copied, nginx.conf. If you run cat nginx.conf, this is the same file. So cp command helps you to interact with the container. You can copy the files from the container to the container, right? So with these set of commands, you can easily interact with your container. You can create, destroy, you can run, you can do. So with this, Docker CLI for management of container is over. We will understand next that how we interact with network.